little notable quote, or quotable quote, whatever you want to call them. I had today somebody call me up about a reference for someone. Someone called me up and says, they've put you down as a reference on their behalf. Could we ask you a few questions about this person? Sure, you've had this before, Roger. Have you not had that before? Never been asked? As a professor, never been asked? Hi, Brian. Nice to see you.
Many times.
Many times, right? So I got this very funny thing that happened to me today. Basically, this lady calls me up and she says, can I ask you a few questions about Mrs. So-and-so? I said, sure. Okay. So then she says to me, in what captivity have you known this woman? She meant to say capacity, but she said captivity, right? And I said, unbeknownst, I just decided not to correct her, and I said, as her rabbi, and then I thought to myself, I said, yeah, as her rabbi. She's been stuck in many a sermon without any way of getting out. In what captivity have I known her? So, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, if you're joining me now online, you're in captivity. Enjoy your captivity. Okay, here we go. The Torah says the following. This week's Parasha Shoftim. Interesting, a lot about judges, and we're going to speak about, we're not going to get very far, hopefully, if we get into the ideas over here. So we have the following. It says, Shoftim v'shotrim, judges and policemen. Titan l'cha b'chol she'arecha. What page are we on? We are on page 1025. 24 and 25 in the Art Scroll Chumashim, if you're looking. Shoftim v'shotrim, titan l'cha b'chol she'arecha. You should make for yourself judges, and you should make for yourself policemen in all your gates, meaning in all your cities. That Hashem, your God, gives you in all of your different tribes. And then together they will judge the nation a judgment that is just or that is true. So the question that many of the Mefarshim ask, it says, Shoftim v'shotrim titen l'chom b'chol she'arecha. Judges and policemen you should make for yourself. What do you mean for yourself? Well, who else? Who else am I making judges for? Right? So what does it mean? Titen l'chom b'chol she'arecha, make for yourself in all your gates. So Kli Yakos is a very important idea, and I think this is it cannot be understated how important this idea is. And I will give one or two real life examples of this. That'll give you the understanding of what that means. So you have over here the following. Shoftim v'shotrim titan l'cha b'chol she'arecha. Imagine who was in charge of setting aside these judges, right? So it's like, how do we put it? Who is the hiring committee for the rabbi? Yeah? Who hires the rabbi? That's a good question, right? Is it the community? Is it the president? Is it the trustees? Who's in charge of hiring the rabbi? And then the question becomes, and once you have hired the rabbi, then what happens? Who now maintains a certain amount of a status quo that allows this rabbi, or this shofet in this instance, to do what he needs to do? Imagine if you had a shofet, you had a judge, and he needs to exact judgment. And you have a certain fellow who's a big shot in the community. Not only is he a big shot in the community, he is in charge of having hired this guy to become part of the Beth Din in the first place. So he's only a dayan because the honorary officer has hired him. And now the honorary officer has done something wrong. Again, we're not talking about our Manchester Bezdin. Please, nobody say that the rabbi's sitting here and he's saying that our Bezdin's done anything wrong. I'm giving a hypothetical scenario. This has nothing to do with our Bezdin. Okay? But somebody's done something wrong. An honorary officer of the Bezdin has done something wrong. And the rabbi calls in the honorary officer, and he's been tasked by whoever it is to call him in and to say, you've damaged somebody else's property, you have embarrassed somebody in public, you've done something wrong, you need to pay, we need to have a din Torah, whatever it is. And the guy looks at him and says, you can't call me into Bezdin. Why not? I'm one of the honorary officers. You make me pay? I'll make you pay. Don't you tell me what to do. I'm in charge over here. What kind of justice system will we have?
Very poor.
Very poor. Because justice works if it works for everybody. If justice has favorites and people that are not favorites, if you could go to court, for example, and if you're black or you're white, you're going to get a different judgment because the jury will look at you differently, or the judge will go, oh, he's just a black man. Again, I'm not trying to be racist, but I know that in many countries this is how it was. The same judgment that a white person would have gotten, the black person would have gotten the opposite judgment.
As he comes through the door already, prejudging him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before
working out of his mouth. Oh, this guy, he's black. He probably comes from an underprivileged home, and you know, he's probably guilty of saying, oh, this man is white. He probably comes from a wonderful, you know.
You just gone straight temporarily.
Yeah, I mean, obviously these things are wrong, right? You can't make a judgment on people's character based on the color of their skin. Of course you can't. But for many generations, maybe for centuries even, that's how it was. And there was nobody to go to even. See, nowadays, if you feel a judgment is unfair, what do? You appeal. Mm-hmm. And if that goes wrong, you can appeal again. You might be able to take it up all the way to the Supreme Court sometimes. You can't appeal beyond the Supreme Court. Okay, at one point or another it gets ridiculous. You're going to have to say, okay, it is what it is. But until you get to that stage, you have a chance for another trial, a retrial, maybe get a fair hearing, maybe things will work better. There's no way of knowing, right? But at least you stand a chance. But if justice means justice for the poor and the rich always get off, because the rich have enough money to buy out the judges, or have enough money to get the most expensive legal team that they can to be able to get themselves out of things. I think one of those examples, I remember when I was a teenager, was the O.J. Simpson trial. And that was a very, very big barometer. People were sitting there and saying, there's a big barometer here of what is going to happen in this American justice system. What will be the bottom line? Will he be acquitted or found guilty? And if he is acquitted, does that mean that a man who seems to be guilty of sin can get off as long as he's got enough money to hire the best defense attorneys in the United States, which he did? And it seems that the latter was the better option. Not the better option, but that was the option that happened. That was what happened. And he did get off. He was acquitted. Or at least he was acquitted in the murder trial. I think in the civil trial he was found to be guilty. In the murder trial he was found to be innocent. It was a crazy thing.
Yes.
But I guess they didn't have enough evidence to charge him and to do anything to him as far as murder was concerned, but they did have enough evidence to do things to him or to make him pay, whatever it was. But that's the point. Shoftim v'shotim titan lecha b'chol sha'arecha. Who is on top of you? Who is giving you guidance? The people that are hiring the judges. Who's on top of you? Somebody said to me recently, I was having a discussion with someone about schools, and he was telling me how in certain schools there are issues with acceptance committees. And that things aren't so simple and straightforward. And the acceptance committee decides whom they would like to accept and whom they don't want to accept. And there's very little you can do about it. And no matter how fair or unfair it seems, who are you going to complain to? I said, there's a rabbinical board. Yeah. So we'll go speak to the rabbinical board. So this fellow said to me, I want to speak to the rabbinical board. The rabbinical board says, I'm the rabbinical board. When they ask me, he says, that doesn't make you the rabbinical board. You're not really, so if they don't ask you, they do whatever like they want to. Where it's convenient, when they know what you're going to say, they're going to come and going to ask you. When it's not convenient, they won't ask you, just do their own thing. So you're not really in charge of it rabbinically. You're just the name that they put on the letterhead. Who's in charge of you? So this is what the Torah says. Shoftim v'shotrim titan lecha b'chol sha'arecha. You should make for yourself, meaning even those people that are setting aside the judges, those people that are hiring the judges, they need to find someone who will be a judge even over them. And then Kliyok actually says, it says, V'shoftu as ha'am mishpat tzedek, means, and they will judge the nation. What means they will judge the nation? Hopefully they'll judge a nation. Maybe they'll judge a nation. What do you mean they will judge a nation? It seems to be that we're sort of taking this as a given. Says Kliyakar, the understanding is, if you find judges that will be able to even exact judgment against the most powerful people in the community, then you can be certain that those are the judges that will be able to exact judgment on everybody. If they're not strong enough to bend the arm for those people that are more powerful, then you don't know. So that's the first idea. That was a very, very beautiful idea. Okay, now we move on to the next idea. Very interesting idea as well. It continues, Losata Mishpat, which means, I think, literally, you shouldn't turn judgment. How does he translate into the English by you? In verse 19. What's the first words in verse 19? Pervert judgment. Okay, he says it's pervert. Right? Losata means almost to turn it. You shouldn't turn it. Lasakir panim, you shouldn't have favorites, as judges, obviously. Velosikach shochad, and don't take shochad. Don't take the bribes. Because bribes will blind the eyes of wise people, and it will ruin the words of the just, of tzaddikim. Says Rashi, a very important point. Don't take a bribe, as explained in the Sifsei Chachamim on Rashi. What are we taking a bribe for? To do what?
To change the way we think.
Meaning, and what are we trying to do? Are we going to give the person who's right or the person who's wrong?
The person's richer.
Pardon? But who are we going to give right over here? The wrong party. Yeah, it would seem. Says the Sifsei Chachamim, that doesn't make any sense because we already said don't pervert justice. If I've already told you not to pervert justice, then obviously don't take money to take the wrong person and give them right. That's perverting justice. Rather, says Rashi, when we say Velosikach shochad, don't take a bribe, afilu lishpot tzedek, even for justice. Even if you're going to do something that is just, even if you're going to do something that you should. So let's say the winning side, I'm not sure why in the world the winning side would do this, but let's say the winning side, the person who you think is correct says, leaves you a little envelope.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Say thank you very much. Yeah.
What's the halacha? Are you allowed to take that envelope or not? He's right anyway. I will be giving him right anyway. It has nothing to do with the envelope. Says halacha, you are not allowed to take that money. Why not?
Because there'll come a day when he comes in front of you again.
Right? That's right. As well as, that's number one.
Yeah.
Yeah? But number two is this is how it starts.
Yeah. It sounds expected then,
Yeah? Not only expected. This is, I'm not even talking about expectations. You're right, expectations are also important. And again, what happens when the guy comes again?
Yeah.
But this is how it starts. It's actually a very interesting story. I find this one of the most fascinating stories about human nature and human psychology. I might have even told the story here already. Remind me if I did tell this story. The Briskerov, he was a rabbi in Brisk. That's why he's known as a Briskerov. And there was a certain judgment that came out against the Jews. And the fellow who was meant to be exacting judgment, this judge, was known as a pretty straight shooter. There was no way to bribe him. In the olden days, Russia, everything worked with bribes. People say even nowadays in Russia, everything works with bribes. I've never been to Russia, but people have told me that Russia is quite a corrupt place, full of corruption. So it works. As they say in Yiddish, as schmiert fortman. You know, you schmear and you're able to drive. Yeah, and schmearing also means to bribe, obviously. So it's a pun, it's a play on words. So they came to Briskerov and they said, there's this gezerah against the Jews. What are we going to do? He said, Briskerov says, don't worry, I'll deal with it. Yeah. He says, what do you want to do? He says, I'm going to bribe the official. He says, the official doesn't take any bribes. He says, I'll bribe the official, don't worry. Don't worry. He says, how are you going to just leave it up to me? Anyway, he comes into the official and he's wearing this heavy raincoat. And the official looks at the rabbi and goes, what are you doing? Why are you wearing such a heavy raincoat? He says, because it's going to rain. I feel it in my bones. He says, it's not going to rain. Look outside. It's beautiful outside. He says, I'm telling you, within the next couple of hours, it's going to rain. And that's why I have my coat with me. He says, not going to. He says, I'm willing to bet you. Is you going to bet? He says, yeah, I'm going to bet. I will bet you 10,000 rubles that within the next 2 hours it's going to rain. I'm never wrong. I feel it in my bones. This guy says, this is easy. I mean, look outside. Weather report is clear. It's sunny as anything. There's not a cloud in the sky. There is no way I'm going to lose this bet. 10,000 rubles. There you go. You got a bet. Anyway, I'll meet you outside in 2 hours. So they're outside in 2 hours, and the brisker is standing there in his hot coat, and he's schwitzing away. And the fellow shows up, and he says, no, where's your rain? He goes, I feel in my bones it's coming. Where's your rain? It's coming. Well, we said 2 hours. It's been 2 hours. There's no rain. Pay up. So Rav says, all right, you win. What should I say? Pulls it out in the pocket, gives him the envelope with 10,000 rubles. And he says to him, as he's walking away, he says, by the way, about that, he says, don't worry about it. We'll get rid of it. Right? And that's the end of the story. So goeth the story, as I tell with the brisker Rav. The genius in that story is the fact that the Rav realized I might not be able to give him money directly. So if I walk over to him and I give him an envelope and I go, there you go, my friend. What's he going to say? I'm not going to be bribed. How dare you? But I just need to find another way to get the money into his pocket. If I find a way to get that money into his pocket without him believing that he's being bribed, once that money is in his pocket, what has happened? I've bought him. It's just a different way to do it. Maybe a little bit cleverer, a bit of a subterfuge. Right? That's a famous story that they tell with the brisker. I always think it's a brilliant story because it shows you his understanding for human nature. Human nature is once you get that money, you are not going to be impartial anymore. You won't. There's no way. I mean, it's interesting enough. I remember speaking to a colleague of mine who said to me, he says, when my father, or he said to somebody who's a son of someone that I knew that was in the rabbinate, who said to me, he said, when his father went into the rabbinate, one of the things that they told him was, he got advice from somebody very, very important, very chashuv. He says, one of the things, never, ever, ever accept an envelope from any of your members. He says, you accept envelopes, you become theirs. Now, it's nice if you can afford to do that. Some people do, some people don't. Some people give it to charity. Okay, every rabbi is going to have his own way of doing things. But once you start taking that money, it's a slippery slope. Lots of bad things have started very innocently. How many people do we know that started off doing little things here or little things there? And the little thing has developed into something bigger. And that develops into something even bigger. And suddenly you turn around and you look back at where you started and where you ended up, and you say to yourself, how did I ever end up in such a position? How did this ever happen to me? And the answer is slowly, not in one day. And the Yetzer Hara knows that. If the Yetzer Hara were to come to somebody and get him, or try to get him to do one of the greatest sins, what would we say? No way, right? No way. So what does Yetzer Hara do? He breaks down barriers. And he breaks down the barrier, and another barrier, and another barrier. Until slowly but surely there's nothing left. And then you just go straight through that last barrier. And so the Rashi tells us something very important. You are not allowed to take a bribe even for something that is correct. Even though you've already made up your mind and you know he's right. There is no such thing as taking a bribe, because if you take money, once you start taking money, you'll continue taking money. And once you continue taking money, you'll take money not only from those people. What are you going to say? You get these people are going to say, I took money, but only from those that were innocent. Yeah? like I stood by a wreath laying, but I never had anything to do with it. Yeah?
Politics.
Pardon?
Politics.
No, I don't talk politics, not at all. Yeah? But it's ridiculous. Who says that? Right? What are you doing there? It says something about you, the fact that you're there. It says something about you, the fact that you take the money. You say, no, but the man is innocent. You don't take it. Judges don't take money. Any judge who starts taking money is already suspect. You say, but this guy's innocent. Who cares? That's not how we do things.
But what if you're living in a country where the policeman says $50 or jail?
No, okay. So is jail justified?
Yeah. Well, let's set the situation as it is.
Yeah.
In other words, you've had a minor traffic infraction. You've got
Right.
32 miles an hour.
Yes.
So in this country,
yes,
the country stops you, right, $50 or pay.
No, so then okay, so you can pay it.
Right.
It is a bribe. And the answer is it's not forbidden for you to give the bribe. It's forbidden for the judge to take the bribes.
He's already asking for it.
He's asking for it, yeah. And in certain countries, when they're giving you that option, and that's it's the way the justice system runs. And everybody knows that's the way the justice. In countries where they give you that option, everybody knows that the whole justice system is not really working correctly. Because in a regular country, you'd never have such a system.
So
that wouldn't work.
It's in order for us to play by their rules.
I would play by their rules. I remember I had a friend of mine who was a Baal Tshuva, and he got done for something, for some kind of road infraction. I can't remember what he did. And he was sentenced, I think, to 20 hours community service. And the 20-hour community service were in a recycling plant. And he gets to this recycling plant. He says it was awful because, this stuff stinks. You can imagine what this stuff smells like when it comes out of those blue bins that we have here in Prestridge. All this stuff, nobody ever washed. Does anybody ever wash out the milk cartons or the milk bottles before they stick them in there? Nobody washes them out. So there's rotten milk in there and juice that's gone off and tomato sauce that's gone rancid. It's just disgusting. And he's sitting there and he's going through this stuff and it's just terrible. And the guy says, "Hey, Gavin, get over here." And Gavin shows up and they pull him into the office. He goes, "All right, Gavin, $50. This is in America, $50. And we'll just sign that you've done all the hours and that's the end of it." And he's like, "But that's not honest." And they're like, "Let's try this again. $50
Yes. Yeah.
and we'll sign the papers that you've done it and you can just leave." "But that's not honest." "No, I'm not signing the paper." And he didn't. And he did the communal service. And I remember he told us the story and everybody around the table had a different opinion. Some people were like, "You're an idiot. What'd you do that for?" And some people were like, "I admire the fact that you're that honest. That even though the people that are," because that was already corrupt. He was supposed to be doing this community service. That was what he got in lieu of the fact that he had done something wrong. So he had to do these 20 hours. These guys are saying for $50, we'll let you off without the 20 hours, but they don't have any right to let him off. They're not police officers. They are the people that work in this recycling plant. All they were going to do is they were going to lie and say he's already done his 20 hours. So he felt it was wrong. He didn't do it. I think there's a big difference between that story and where the policeman says it's either or. I said, "Okay, I don't have to go to Cheder. You're willing to take $50? I'm willing to give you the $50. You're the corrupt man, not me." Anyway, moving on. We continue with the next bit of the Parasha. The Parasha says, you shouldn't plant an Asherah tree. An Asherah tree was a specific tree that they used for Avodah Zarah. And they used to serve it. You shouldn't plant it next to the Mizbeach of Hashem. Next one. Don't make for yourself a matzeva, which was a stone that was used for bringing offerings, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu hates. Next, do not bring to Hashem an ox or a sheep. Anything that has a blemish, called avara. Anything that has a blemish that is bad, because it is abominable to Hashem, the fact that you would bring such an offering. Those are the three verses that we write next to each other. What do they have to do with each other? And more importantly, how do they continue? How does this flow from what we said before? So Sefarna says something very interesting. The Sefarna says, and I think we spoke about this a little bit also when we spoke about this at Shalashudis. So says Sefarna the following. There are things that look nice, but just because they look nice does not mean that they're good, or that they are upstanding, or they are accepted by Hashem as something that's worthwhile. So let's take an example, the Asher tree. It seems this Asher tree is a beautiful tree. You have a tree, and that's a beautiful tree, and you look at this tree and you say, what a beautiful tree. How lovely, how nice it is that there's a tree that looks like this. Yet, what does that tree represent? Idol worship. The tree, this specific tree, was used for idol worship. So people might think to themselves and say, you know what? This is a very nice tree. I will put this tree next to the Mizbeach. Or I'll put this tree, it doesn't mean specifically next to the Mizbeach, that as well. But I'll put this tree somewhere where it has, I feel it enhances God's Beis HaMikdash. Look how beautiful. Says Hashem, do me a favor. Don't decide on your own what enhances my Beis HaMikdash and what doesn't enhance my Beis HaMikdash. Let me decide these things. Let me make that decision. This is a tree that's used for idol worship. This is not a beautiful thing, you see, but it looks beautiful. It feels beautiful. It smells beautiful. It's so great. And Hashem says, no, it's not great. It's a tree used for idol worship. Next one, a matzeva. This is a longer discussion because this is Sforno has a whole thesis on this in Shemos, and we're not going to discuss the thesis of Sforno now from Shemos over here, but Sforno says that once the Jewish people sinned at the golden calf, things changed around. Meaning, originally, God had said, anywhere where you come and you mention my name, I will come and I will bless you. God says, he gives the Jewish people a promise at the time of Matan Torah that you have reached such an extreme level of height in your ruchnius, in your spirituality, that you won't need a special place to come to meet up with me. Anywhere you want is good enough. Make yourself a little altar in the back of your garden. Use it. Feel free. That's Sforno's opinion. And therefore, I'm just mentioning this just for sake of completeness. We're not going to discuss it in its full length. But Sforno says that that's what the halacha was before the golden calf. And then the golden calf came along. And after the golden calf, that and then and only then do the Jewish people need to build a mishkan. Then they need to build a tabernacle. But before then, there was no need for a tabernacle, says Sforno, because everybody was on the level that was holy enough that they could connect with God without having to come to a central place of connection. Who needs a central place of connection? I'm connected with God where I am. You're connected with God where you are. You're connected with God wherever you are. So you know where you bring in? Well, you know where I can bring my offering? My back garden. I don't need to go to Yerushalayim. I don't need no mishkan. Do it yourself. Then what happened? The Jewish people sinned, and when they sinned at the golden calf, they came down from that level, and God said, you are not on the level to be able to have your own, so to speak, mishkan, your own place of worship. The only place of worship that we're going to have is going to be a central place of worship, known as the Mishkan, then as the Beis HaMikdash. That's going to be a central place, and that is where you will be able to bring your offerings. But before then, everybody was able to bring their own offerings on their own back garden, on a matzeva. So you look at this matzeva, you look at this stone, and you say to yourself, this is a wonderful thing. This is a great thing. I have a stone here, and allows me to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it allows me to bring offerings whenever I want to, and I don't have to travel to Yerushalayim. I can go across the road and buy a sheep off my next door neighbor who sells livestock, and I bring it into my garden, I bring it, and there's my carbon. And this is a holy pursuit, right? Because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to bring a carbon and offering to Hashem. Says Hashem, but also Kim Lacha Matzeva. Yes, it used to be something that I wanted. You've ruined it. You've changed around your own spiritual makeup. And therefore, there's no more using a matzeva. And since there's no more using matzeva, there's no more using matzeva. So you might say, but it looks so good and it makes so much sense. And I got my own little temple and. The answer is no. That's not how we do things. And the last one is, Lo sizbach lashem lakecha shavas asher bo mum. You cannot bring an offering that has a mum. What is a mum? A mum is a blemish. How extreme does the blemish need to be? So if you go through the rules of blemishes, there are some extreme ones, if it's missing a leg, if it's missing an arm, etc., yeah, those are extreme blemishes. And I could say, okay, it makes sense. I shouldn't take the worst of the worst and bring it to God. But there are some mumim. I don't know how many of you heard we didn't discuss the story at the time, but I don't know if you know them. I'm sure you know the story of Kamtzu Bar Kamsa. So the story of Kamtzu Bar Kamsa goes as follows. He had a friend who was Kamsa, he had an enemy who was Bar Kamsa. Bar Kamsa comes, he gets kicked out of the Suda, and so therefore he's very upset. And he says, I'm going to go to the king, and I'm going to tell the king that the Jewish people have rebelled. So he comes to the Caesar, and he says, the Jewish people have rebelled, and the king says, how am I supposed to believe you? Why? What proof do you have? Says the king, says Bar Kamsa, I got a very simple proof. You send them an offering. If you bring an offering, if they're willing to bring it up, you'll see that they're not willing to, that it's a good thing. Then you'll be allowed, then you see they've not rebelled against you. If they refuse to bring that offering, then you will know that they've rebelled against you. So says Bar Kamsa. King says, good idea, sending an offering. King takes an offering and sends it with Bar Kamsa. And Bar Kamsa takes it and he makes a very small mum, a very small blemish, either in the eyelid or in one of the lips. Now you can be assured that if the king sent an offering to the Beis HaMikdash, what did he send?
Good.
Oh, he probably got, the finest of the fine and took it out. And yet, were the Jews allowed to bring it? No. There was a big discussion then. This is a separate shir again. But they brought it and they said, okay, we have to bring this offering. We know what's going on over here. If we don't bring this offering, we'll be in serious trouble. And Rav Zachar ben Aftinas pulls up and he says, you're not allowed to bring korbanos with a mum. People will say, you can bring a korban with a mum. Says, okay, let's kill the messenger. Because this messenger, he's dangerous. If he goes back, who knows what kind of damage he can do to us. Says as Rabbi Zachariah, can't do that. People will say, if you make a mum, if you make a blemish in an animal, you'll get killed. So they leave the man alone, and what happens? They don't bring the offering, and the king comes and he feels that they've rebelled against him, and he attacks the Jewish people. And the Gemara speaks about that separately. The Gemara says, the fact that Rabbi Zachariah ben Aftinas was willing to accept this and just say, let's do nothing, but you did nothing, now you got in trouble. You should have done something. Couldn't have let the situation go like this. Yeah, but what is everyone going to say? I don't know. Not always can you do that. Says the Torah, if you have an animal, you can have a 10,000-pound cow, won all sorts of pageants and awards, etc., and has a tiny little mum in its lip. And you bring it to the Beis HaMikdash and you look at it and the Kohen looks it over and he says, sorry, no good. You say, no good? This is an award-winning animal. What do you mean, no good? No good. A little split in the lip. That's one thing. Yeah, the next guy who comes in, a scrawny, horrible-looking animal. Sometimes you see these animals and you think themselves are like dying on their feet as you see them. Kohen looks it over. Kosher. So you say, what are you saying? That one, scrawny, horrible, emaciated animal. It's good. This award-winning cow, just because it's got a little split in the lip, is no good. The answer is yes. That's what Hashem says. He wants perfection in these specific things. This isn't perfect. This isn't right. This might not be, we're not saying this is a beautiful animal. You say, but wait a minute. This is a 10,000-pound cow versus a 300-pound sheep. How do you even compare the two? How could you say this one is good and this one's no good? The answer is, that is how God willed it. Guess what Hashem said? That's how we do it. Says Safarno, this is the understanding. This is what these three things have to do with each other. And this is why these three things are written together. You have three things that to the eye look very enticing. They look right. They feel right. I believe we should do this. I believe this is the right thing. How many times have you heard people say it is the right thing to do? I believe this is the right approach.
Right,
Yeah, I feel it's right. Is it right? No. No, many times it's not. Not always, but many times it's not. And sometimes you say, this feels, it just doesn't feel right. It feels wrong. That's halacha. It feels wrong. I don't feel it. So, is it your feelings that decide? Are you the one to make the decision and to say, it feels right or feels wrong to me? Because once it starts becoming about me and about my feelings, as opposed to about God and what Hashem wants from us, it's a very, very dangerous slippery slope. Yeah, Roger, we're going to say something.
No, I'm just going to, just this problem whether justice should ever be diluted by mercy.
It can sometimes, but it's very difficult. The idea of justice and mercy is a very, very interesting discussion, especially before Rosh Hashanah. We don't have time really to deal with it properly tonight. So I take your question, but I don't think I have the time to really give you a satisfactory answer for that, not in the 2 minutes we have left in this year. So coming back to what I was saying, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Yiddishkeit is not about how I feel. And if it becomes about how I feel about certain things, it's very, very dangerous. It's a very warped way of things working. I tell a famous story. I know some people don't like the story. Some people really dislike the story, but I'll tell it anyway. I tell a famous story about a lady that came to Rabbi Soloveitchik in America and said to him, Rabbi Soloveitchik, I just feel I'm not getting the most out of my spirituality. I need more. So he says, okay, well, what do you need? To which she says, I really believe if I got to wear talis and tefillin, I would feel my davening and my spirituality soaring. To which the rabbi thought about it. He goes, okay, listen, can't just take everything on in one go. Let's start slowly. She says, okay, I'm happy to do that. So let's take a talis without any strings attached to it. You'll wear it for the next 3 weeks. And if it shows an improvement in your davening, if you feel different, come back and then we'll discuss the next step. And the lady's all excited and he gives her the talis without the strings and she goes and she wears this talis without the strings for the next 3 weeks and she comes back to the Rav and she says to the Rav, Rabbi Soloveitchik, I don't know how to thank you. He says, what for? She says, do you not understand what my Yiddishkeit has been doing for the last 3 weeks? Do you know what my davening has been like for the last 3 weeks? Do you know how close and connected to God I have felt in the last 3 weeks? All because of your ingenious idea of this talis? I can't thank you enough. Says Rabbi Soloveitchik to her, my dear lady, can I just clarify something with you? She says, sure. You just realize, had you been a man, you would be doing an Avera. Because a four-corner garment without tzitzis shall not be worn. And therefore, what were you wearing? Really, what was this lady wearing when she's wearing a four-corner garment without tzitzis? A blanket. Yeah? For all intents and purposes. You were wearing a useless, non-halachic blanket that had no bearing on halacha whatsoever. And what have you decided? you were able to
She feels
focus
better.
more. Pardon?
She feels better.
She felt better by it. And you know what? It could very well be that she felt better. There's a placebo effect. Says Rabbi Salvation, but this is just a placebo effect. It's not real. You made this up. It's not really part of you. It's not really coming close to Hashem, because Hashem has never asked anybody to wear a talis without strings. It doesn't happen. It's your own imagination. Your own imagination is running wild with you, which is a lovely thing, but it's not Judaism. And that's what this part of the Torah is telling us. Yes, you know what? The shor looks beautiful. This ox looks great. We should bring this ox. It's a 10,000-pound ox. It's got a mum. You don't bring it. This matzeva, you know, I could bring korbanos in my back garden. You know how connected to God I would feel. God says, I didn't ask you to bring korbanos in your back garden. I used to be allowed to. Yes, used to is the very important word in this sentence. The definitive word. Not anymore. I love this Asherah tree. It's so beautiful. It's got so much meaning. It's got so much aesthetics to it. To which we say, yes, but it's a tree of Avodah Zarah. Yiddishkeit is not governed by the way I feel about things, because otherwise it becomes a very, very messy affair. It's governed by the way Hashem wants things done. That's how Yiddishkeit happens. That's what Yiddishkeit is, and that's how we do things. Okay, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, if there are any ladies that are watching as well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm very excited to be back, to be able to have this share with you together. Hopefully, Mitzvah Hashem, now all the way through to Rosh Hashanah, we're going to be having this share. Okay, please, if you did enjoy it, share it or like it so you can pass it on to other people.